I've seen the red eyes of Jupiter. I'm going to tell you a story that my mom always tells me. When I was a tiny kid, she used to take me outside at night and show me the stars through a telescope. I was only 2 years old, and I hadn't seen the night sky before. She pointed out different groups of stars called constellations, like Ursa Major, Auriga, and Orion. And of course, she showed me the moon. Then she pointed the telescope at something special. Jupiter. And then, I started yelling really loud. I went from being happy and calm to screaming like crazy. My mom never understood why I got so scared, and for many years, I didn't either. It was like he saw a monster, she says when she tells the story. Maybe he just didn't know what he was looking at. It can be scary not knowing what's out there. My dad always joked that the telescope was the reason I became a geologist. He thought it was better for me to look at the ground instead of the sky. I never thought about it that way, but he had a point. I've always loved to understand how the world works. I think geology is all about figuring out the secrets of our planet. It's like understanding the foundation of your house. So, I became a geologist. I got my degree at Michigan State University, went to school in Norway to get my master's degree, and got a job with the government in Virginia. By 2013, I had a great job and was learning all about how to protect buildings from earthquakes. Things were going well. But there were some things that weren't so great. First, I was super lonely. And second, I hadn't looked through a telescope since I was a little kid. But that all changed in March of 2013. I had just turned 24. I was kind of dating this girl, Lynn. We had only gone out a few times, but I had a good feeling about the third date. She was really into outdoor stuff. She had all kinds of special clothes, super fancy water bottles, and this amazing watch that tracked everything she did. She was really high-tech, and I couldn't keep up with her. But she seemed to like me, and that's all that mattered. She told me that we were going hiking all day and that she had a surprise for me at the end. It was getting dark, so I thought maybe we would sleep in a tent. She never said I had to bring my own, though. When we got to the top of a hill, I realized that I had been a complete idiot. There were 6 other people there, all camping. They were all like Lynn, energetic and happy to be outside. Lynn turned to me with a big smile. "Surprise," she laughed. "We're having a stargazing party." I hadn't brought a tent. But Lynn thought it was understood that I should have brought one. Apparently, you're supposed to always bring a tent when you go hiking. I hate it when people have unspoken rules. At that moment, I was really bummed. I had imagined the date to be much different. But then, I started to have a good time. We had hot dogs and marshmallows, and everyone had brought telescopes to look at the stars. They were supposed to see a shooting star, but I think it was mostly an excuse to get away from the city. One of Lynn's friends had brought some schnapps. Not much, but enough to play a game called Never Have I Ever and laugh a lot. By the time the meteor was supposed to come by, we had forgotten about it. Well, I had almost forgotten about Lynn. Everyone got up and took turns looking through the telescopes. It felt pretty magical, to be honest. All of us standing on that hill, looking up at the clear sky. There were no streetlights, no cars, just us and the stars. It was my turn to look through the telescope. When you look at the stars through a telescope, it makes them feel more real. You see details that you wouldn't normally see. It reminds you that the stars are not just pretty pictures, they are real things, far away. In space. I watched the shooting star for a little while, saying, "Wow," and "Ooh," along with everyone else. Then, it went right in front of Jupiter. I stopped moving. It felt like my body froze in place. I hadn't seen Jupiter that close since I was a kid. It felt different, almost scary. The ground started to vibrate. I thought the tripod that held the telescope was broken at first. Then it vibrated again. I put my hands down, but I couldn't look away. My neck felt stiff. I felt like I was choking. I couldn't blink. I couldn't even scream. And the rumbling got louder. The vibration got faster and faster, almost like music. It started with a low sound, then went higher, and then lower again. It was like 3 different notes, repeating inside my head like an echo. I was looking around for something to look at, and then I saw something. On Jupiter's surface, there were big, red spots. Some were huge, some were small. But there was one spot so big, I couldn't miss it. I knew what those red spots were, in a way. I'd learned about Jupiter's storms. But what I saw was different. Those weren't storms. They were eyes. Each storm, Every spot was a red eye. Then, I understood the rumbling. The way my body was shaking. The low, high, and low sounds, those were words. As I listened, the sounds became clearer, like tuning a radio. It was like Jupiter was speaking to me, like the sound of a song, but not with words. It said, "I see you." Everyone else thought I had a seizure. Lynn said I looked at the telescope and immediately started shaking. She offered to get my jacket, which was by the fire. When I finally looked away from the telescope, all I could do was drool and make the same 3 sounds over and over again. But they didn't understand. How could they? Low, high, low. I see you. I see you. I was only unconscious for a few minutes. Everyone gathered around me to see if I was okay. They had first aid kits and a satellite phone, and they were arguing about whether to call for help. They knew where the ranger station was, but I woke up before they could call. "I'm okay," I said, catching my breath. "Really? I don't know what happened." "That's epilepsy," one of them said. "My cousin has that." "No, that's low blood sugar," another said. "For sure." Someone mentioned something about chakras. Another person said something about my liver and insisted that I eat some Minnesota sunflower seeds. What a crazy night. The next morning, I headed straight home. I said goodbye to Lynn, who insisted that I stay in touch. I went straight to bed and fell asleep immediately. My hiking gear was all over the hallway. I slept for 14 hours straight, without dreaming at all. It was like turning off a light and waking up on another planet. When I woke up, I felt like a machine was turning back on. Something inside me shifted, and I looked up at the ceiling. Without thinking, I said out loud, "I see you." I tried to pretend that it was just stress and fatigue. I had hiked all day, then drank some alcohol. It was probably a bad combination. I spent a lot of time reading about Jupiter, trying to explain what I saw. I read about the storms, the dust and gas, the rings, the moons. Jupiter is a planet that we know a lot about. But I had seen something different. It was like I saw right through the storms, something deeper. It felt like breaking through ice, and then seeing something sparkling at the bottom of a lake. I had to choose. Ignore it or face it. What else could I do? I decided to ignore it. For a few days, it worked. I felt a little shiver sometimes when I heard a strange noise, like from a car engine or a machine. One day I heard this sound coming from my refrigerator that made me stop what I was doing. I stood there, my head against the fridge, listening. That strange rumble, almost like it was trying to reach me. Lynn and I kept in touch. She was worried about me, and asked me to go see a doctor. I was hesitant at first, but she made me promise. I thought about pretending I had gone, but I couldn't lie to her, even though it would have been easier. The doctor didn't find anything wrong with me. At least, not physically. I kept getting distracted by all the humming noises. I started to think that I could hear the frequencies everywhere, even on a computer screen or in the pipes in the bathroom. It was like I could feel this rumble in my body, reminding me that I wasn't okay. It all got too much one night when I was making dinner. I was frying chicken and texting with Lynn when I got caught in this rhythm. There was a humming noise coming from the kitchen fan, and it was the same frequency as the rumble. It was calling out to me, over and over again. You. I have no idea how long I stood there. My mind just synced up to that rhythm. At some point, I started coughing and realized the smoke detector was going off because my chicken was burnt. I ended up eating powdered tomato soup. Even as I stirred it with my spoon, I imagined the storms on Jupiter. The red swirls, hiding a terrifying chaos. I watched it swirl and swirl and swirl. And the longer I looked, the closer it felt like the eye was coming to me. My hands clenched, holding the plate tightly. I could feel a rumbling sound in my stomach, like a volcano about to explode. The familiar 3 notes, now making me scream, right from inside my bones. I see you. I threw the plate across the room. It shattered into a million pieces, red tomato sauce splattering on the wall. The little dots were like swirling storms on Jupiter. The humming sound faded into whispers, whispers that told me, without a doubt, I was seen. Over the next few nights, things got even worse. I wished I could sleep without dreaming, but it wouldn't happen. I kept seeing this huge eye, bigger than anything I'd ever seen before. I could feel storms, red mountains with sharp edges around an endless black eye. No matter how much I fought, it sucked me in, pulling me down and down forever. I would wake up drenched in sweat, dizzy. I would fall out of bed and struggle to find my balance. It took a few seconds to remember where I was. If I was lucky, I might get 30 minutes of sleep. I gave up. I told Lynn everything, begging for help. She came to my apartment right away, took me to the hospital. I don't even remember filling out any forms. She called my emergency contact and told the doctors what had been going on. She was amazing. I tried not to look at anything, not to listen to any noises. My head was spinning from lack of sleep. I don't remember much, just a blur of hallways and faces. By that time, I could feel the rumbling in everything. Every light, every electrical socket. I could feel it on the floor as I walked. The rumbling wouldn't stop. The only memory I have is of looking into a doctor's eyes and finally feeling clear-headed for a moment. He looked at me like I had slapped him. "Good," he said. "So your eyes are working." What? You can see me, right? He took some notes and looked at my eyes. "You just said that," he said. "They kept me overnight for observation. My mom came to visit and brought me stuff and words of encouragement. She stroked my head and made sure I had enough water. Whenever I started to rant and have seizures, she would calm me down as best she could. At that point, I was so messed up I couldn't explain what was happening. It felt like there were voices everywhere, and they were so loud I couldn't think straight. Then, at some point, it stopped. I remember it clearly. My mom had opened the window looking out. At the parking lot, I could see the night sky and the stars moving across the sky. After shaking for days, the feeling of relaxation was like nothing I had ever felt. It was like being wrapped in a warm blanket. Mom stroked my hair. "You always liked that," she said. "Remember? You used to sleep with the window open." I don't remember that. No stuffed animals or nightlights. Just an open window. Anything else, and you would have a big tantrum. She sat with me for a while, then got up to go to the bathroom. When she turned back to me before leaving, she said, "You know, when you were born, we didn't think you would make it," she said. "It was all such a mess. The car broke down. Your dad thought we could walk through a field to get to the hospital." "I know," I sighed. "I was born in a field. The paramedics found us," she continued. "If it hadn't been a bright night, with so many stars, they never would have. It saved your life." I looked out the window. The dark sky felt comforting now. It didn't make my nerves go crazy anymore. Like a dark ocean, you could imagine the waves. "We didn't think you would make it, but when we heard their voices, we knew you would be okay." I remembered a vague feeling of people all around me. Being naked and cold in an open field. Hands touching me. A voice, far above, whispering, "Don't worry, kid." A breath that lasts a lifetime. "I see you." The next morning, I was discharged. My nerves were calmer, and I got medicine for seizures. I was taken out of the hospital, and Lynn was there to meet me. It wasn't the kind of introduction I had planned, but it worked out. My mom was going to take me home, and Lynn was happy to help. As we started driving, I felt something strange. A cold feeling, like a snowflake hitting a cut. "Do we need to stop?" she asked. "Are you okay?" "No, just wait." As I looked around, the feeling shifted. It disappeared in one particular direction. I pointed to something in the distance. "Can we go, that way?" I asked. "Right there. That way." "The highway?" "Sure, yeah." "To where?" "No clue." Lynn thought about it for a second, then nodded. "The highway it is." We drove on the highway for hours, turning the day into a road trip. We crossed the border into West Virginia in the afternoon. Lynn didn't seem to mind. She made it into an adventure. In between feeling sick and confused, I enjoyed her company. Plus, she brought snacks. As the sun went down, I thought she would turn around or find a motel. But she kept driving. I could feel the place I needed to be getting closer. It made the shaking in my body fade and made me feel less confused. Something inside me was settling back into its right place. We ended up on a long, gravel road. Every turn was sudden, making us drive really slowly. Lynn didn't mind. She had put on some John Denver and started singing along. "You don't have to do this," I said. "We could be here all night." "That's okay," she smiled. "Are you sure? A fourth date is a fourth date. I'm sure you've had better dates." "I've had worse." As the gravel road turned to dirt and came to a stop, I felt that we were getting closer to where I needed to be. I tried to explain, but I couldn't find the right words. It was like a space of nothingness, growing bigger. I just knew that if I could get there, everything would work out, in one way or another. Lynn stopped to get her hiking pack. We were ready to go. We walked through the forest. There were no trails, just us and a sense of direction. Lynn didn't seem to mind. She had a compass, satellite phone, and all kinds of tools. We walked for 2 hours, through the dark, and then suddenly there was light. It was almost midnight. As we got to the top of a hill overlooking a lake, we saw a starry sky. I could see most of the lake. In the distance, I saw a few boats, fishermen. It was so quiet. Everywhere I looked, it was quiet. I looked at Lynn and laughed. I was so relieved I could barely speak. It was like a tight knot in my muscles had loosened up, or a really bad headache went away. I felt better than I had in ages. I gave Lynn a big hug, and she hugged me back. I don't know why, but this is it, I smiled. This is the place. I think we're in, Greenbrier County? Is that place special to you? Never been here before. Well then. I sat down and took it all in. No humming. No whispers. No cold shivers running down my spine. Just the quiet night and the lights of the stars and the fishermen's boats. Want some soup? Lynn asked. I brought a thermos. When did you? I had it in my pack, she smiled. Want some? Yeah, I nodded. That'd be great. She poured me a cup and handed it to me. I looked up at the sky. Something red was moving across the sky. I shook my head and turned away. My heart started beating faster, and I dropped my cup. I tapped my head, like I was trying to fix an antenna. Lynn put her hand on my shoulder. You okay? The red thing in the sky. The red eye. I could feel it. I tried to convince myself that it would pass. That it was over. That I had won. It was just an aftershock. Then, Lynn spoke up. Is that a plane? She saw it too. I looked back at Lynn, and I saw a red gleam in her eyes, a reflection of the red thing above. The happiness went away from her eyes. She could feel it too. Something was wrong. Without thinking, I looked up. It was dumb, but I couldn't help it. A red swirl in the sky, a shooting star that was too far away to reach. My breath became shallow as I realized I couldn't look away. The red thing was swallowing everything in my sight. Lynn? Lynn! I called, waving my arms. Don't let it take. I felt her fingers brushing mine, and the ground began to rumble. But this time, it was different. It was like a pulse. So powerful that my left eardrum popped, making me scream like a little kid. The rumble burned me, it squeezed my spine, and made me scream. Far away, I could feel Lynn shaking me. But I could only focus on the red dot in the sky. It pulsed with me. With every heartbeat, it pulsed back. Our song, our signal. I gasped for breath, making single, hiccup-like sounds. I see you. It grew faster, then even faster. 3 sounds, 2 sounds. Then, just one. I see you. I-Z-U-E. You. E-E. You. Until there was only one word. The name, the signal, the thing. Eo. 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 With each beat of my heart, the thing in the sky started turning. I could hear Lynn in the distance, like she was behind thick glass. I heard her worry. She screamed. She tried to call someone on her satellite phone, but all she got was static. She tried to pull me away, but she got shocked with static electricity. Every hair on my body stood up, reaching for the stars, letting the wind pass right through me. The red thing was getting bigger. That something. It was like a tiny dust particle in the infinite universe, heading towards us. It was only a matter of minutes. Lynn used a rope from her pack to tie my legs. She pulled me away, but it was too late. It was like my nightmares. A distant red thing growing bigger, swallowing everything. Eo, Eo, Eo. Something burst inside of me as it hit us. I coughed up something black and gooey. Maybe it was the connection that tied me to this thing. Maybe it was my birthmark that made this happen to me. Maybe this was my fate. The sky burned my eyes, but only for a second. It went from bright red to nothing in a flash. The ground shook. There was steam, and so much cold air was forced out that Lynn fell down. The red thing was shaped like a wedge, the size of a school bus. It tore into the lake, cracking the earth open. It made a hole in the ground, revealing some kind of cave system underneath. In just a few minutes, all of the water was gone, drained into the caves. The remains of the red thing turned to ash. Red, swirling ash. Lynn helped me lean against a tree. My head was ringing. My vision slowly came back, and the pulse calmed down. The black blob I coughed up dried quickly and turned into flakes of metal. I tried to talk, but I couldn't form words. I couldn't even hear myself. I was so disoriented that I couldn't even tell if I was breathing or not. I leaned against the tree, pushing myself to stand. I had to see what happened. The entire lake drained in seconds. I could only see pieces of the fishermen's boats, some of which had been blown into the trees. They didn't survive. The fish, too, were just flopping in the mud. I looked at Lynn, trying my best to speak. My body remembered how to talk, but the words wouldn't come. I used my fingers to tell her numbers. I pointed to her satellite phone. We needed to call everyone. The Army Corps, NOAA, the EPA, the Division of Natural Resources. Even my boss. Everyone. We needed everyone. So, we called them, one by one. And that was that. For me, at least, things were finally at peace. I couldn't feel anything anymore. Maybe I had done what I was supposed to do and paid my debt, in a way. Over time, my ears healed. It turned out I also had a broken rib and ulcers in my throat. Still, I could get better. It was all just absurd. The news said there was a small geological event, but never mentioned the stupid shooting star that had changed direction and hit us. They also said there were some escaped convicts and told people to stay inside their homes. Even though I had called everyone I could think of, I wasn't allowed near the place where it happened. I didn't get any updates or information about what happened. The only thing I got was a call from a corporate landowner who told me I was trouble enough. That alone tells me that they know something I don't, and it really bugs me. But there's a limit to how many times you can bang your head against a wall. After a while, you just get too tired to care. That's where I am now. In the past few years, I've looked at the sky without getting nervous. I've looked at Jupiter a bunch, and I can't even imagine what I used to see. I know there's something there, but it's like a filter. Something in my mind just blocks it out now. What about Lynn? Well, it was her idea to write this all down. She thinks there are other people out there who might have seen something. Other stories. We know for sure that there was a cover-up at the local news station. Someone must have seen what happened. The only thing that's still left in me is that word. The strange sound that meant nothing and everything. It's like a word from a lost language, wanting to come back. I could say it over and over again, but it wouldn't make any difference. It feels like it's burnt out of me. It's gone. There's nothing left to make it true. Ew. Just a sound. I hope that someone can use this truth. Maybe they can find some peace. Lynn and I are expecting our second daughter any day now, and I feel like this part of my life needs to be over. And no, she will not be born under the stars.